He didn't tell his wife he was coming home in advance. The veteran found a huge surprise his wife had prepared for him. Apparently on his head, there was already a cheating partner. But when the truth came out, his wife said even more calmly, "I think divorce is the best solution." Then she threw a divorce agreement right in front of him. Logically, a scene like this should make people fly into a rage. But the man seemed unusually calm. There was even a hint of secret joy in his heart. His wife and her lover looked confused, unable to figure out what the man was thinking. Little did they know a few days earlier, Paul had met a beautiful woman on the train. She was struggling alone to lift her heavy luggage onto the rack. Unexpectedly, the luggage slipped from her hands. Seeing this, Paul hurried forward to help, but just then the train slowly started moving. Inertia caused the two of them to crash into each other unexpectedly. The air around them froze instantly. An awkward atmosphere quietly spread. Paul quickly stood up, but didn't notice in the little chaos, the girl had accidentally taken his train ticket by mistake. When he stood up again and asked about the girl's condition with full concern, that little incident earlier seemed to be the trigger. The girl, who was already in poor health, couldn't help but vomit on the spot. He didn't get angry at all, just silently walked into the bathroom and cleaned his dirty military uniform. When he returned to the carriage again, the girl had already fallen into a deep sleep. The slightly tired Paul also leaned against the seat and took a nap. When the train slowly pulled into a passing station and stopped, Paul was shocked to find that the girl had quietly gotten off. At the same time, he himself was also kicked off the train because of the ticket mix-up. Eager to reach his destination as soon as possible, he hurriedly boarded a bus to continue his journey, never expecting that on this bus, he would run into the girl from the train again unexpectedly. The two looked at each other and smiled when their eyes met. They couldn't help but feel emotional about this wonderful fate. After chatting for a while, the girl suddenly realized that she had taken the wrong ticket earlier. Just as the two were chatting happily, two uninvited guests boarded the bus. Although there were many empty seats in the carriage, the two went straight for Victoria and sat down as if no one else was around. They teased Victoria in a frivolous tone, and their hands became more and more presumptuous. Paul watched it all and couldn't help but speak up to remind them to behave. But unexpectedly, the other party thought Paul was minding other people's business. They got up to attack him. However, as a soldier, Paul was already skilled in combat. He quickly and neatly subdued the two rascals, but the driver couldn't stand the fight in his bus and immediately kicked all three of them off. Victoria leaned behind the car window, looking at Paul with full guilt. Her eyes were filled with apology and helplessness. Paul didn't stop for a moment, dragged his luggage and headed for the next stop. Paul, walking on the mountain path, ran into the girl for the third time unexpectedly. She was huddled in the middle of the road. Tears fell down her cheeks like pearls. When she noticed Paul approaching, Victoria finally stopped sobbing and apologized to Paul for the two previous troubles. But before she could finish speaking, tears started falling again, like spring rain.
He's going to kill me.
Who?
My father.
During their conversation, Paul learned about Victoria's background. She was born into a prominent family in Mexico, but as a graduate student at a university, she was inexperienced in the world and developed a crush on her supervisor. And during their relationship, Victoria unexpectedly got pregnant. When the supervisor found out, he cruelly abandoned her and resolutely kicked her out of the school. Desperate and helpless, she had no choice but to go back home. But her father was a conservative man who valued family honor more than his life. If she went back like this, she feared she would be driven away by her father. Seeing Victoria so sad, Paul felt sympathy for her, but after racking his brain, he could only think of a somewhat clumsy plan. Paul told her his idea completely. Victoria's heart skipped a beat after hearing it, as if seeing a glimmer of hope. After walking along the winding path for a long time, a vineyard like a fairyland came into view. To make the act more realistic, Paul used materials on hand. With chocolate wrapping paper, he made a simple ring by hand and gently put it on Victoria's finger as a token of their love. Just as the two were concentrating on agreeing on their story, a sharp gunshot suddenly broke the peace, instantly disrupting their thoughts. Relying on his soldier's instinct, Paul threw himself to the ground instinctively and quickly protected Victoria with his body. And the person who appeared was Victoria's father. When the father learned that his daughter had secretly gotten married behind his back, he was so angry that his eyebrows almost stood up. He firmly opposed the marriage. In his mind, his daughter's husband should at least be a duke's son, to be worthy of the family's glory. His stubborn and outdated thinking could not accept his daughter deciding on such a major marriage matter without permission. He angrily told Paul to leave immediately. Even if he had to ask the Pope for help, he had to annul the marriage. However, this storm did not cause much trouble. The other members of the family, not only did they not follow his anger, but they also took the initiative to cast friendly glances at Paul, and even for Victoria, they offered sincere blessings. Seeing this, the father stamped his feet in anger. The next day happened to be the grape harvest at the manor. Everyone went to pick grapes one after another. The heavy fruits, Victoria personally demonstrated and taught Paul the skills of picking grapes. Paul followed her movements and learned earnestly. His technique was not skilled, but he quickly got the hang of it. However, due to lack of experience, he accidentally dropped a bunch of grapes on the ground. The father happened to be nearby and bent down to pick up the grapes, seriously blew off the dust on them, then stared at Paul with a meaningful look, and Paul felt an invisible sense of competition ignite. From this moment on, the grape-picking showdown between him and Victoria's father officially began. Neither side was willing to back down. While picking, they They also kept an eye on each other's progress, both determined to stand out in this competition. The family members around, watching the back and forth between the two, couldn't help but break into happy smiles. In the end, the experienced father got the upper hand in this competition, but Paul was not discouraged by this. He picked up a bunch of grapes that the father had accidentally dropped, imitated the father's previous action and gently blew off the dust, declaring that he was proud even in defeat. Seeing this, the father was not angry at all. Instead, he showed a gratified smile, looking at this prospective son-in-law who was his equal. The estrangement in his heart quietly melted away under the warm sun, as the grape-picking work came to a successful end. The manor was immediately immersed in a joyous celebration. Everyone worked together to pour all the fresh grapes into a specially made wooden barrel, waiting for them to ferment slowly. Then all the married ladies stepped lightly into the barrel. Amidst the cheers and surrounded by everyone, Paul was also lifted into that joyful wooden barrel. This was everyone's best wishes for the new couple. As they got closer and closer to each other, even the air seemed to be filled with a hint of ambiguous sweetness. The feelings hidden deep in their hearts were like fine wine aged over the years, becoming more mellow and charming. Finally, they could no longer hide their inner feelings, the love that was surging like magma. Then they found an excuse to go back to the room. At this moment, the intense emotions almost broke through their defenses. But just as this passion was about to burst out, Paul suddenly stopped. In his mind appeared the home that, although made him feel distant, had always existed.